Next up on No Surprises.
We interview with the mindset that you're going into the toughest client relationship we can ever think of. How are you going to respond to these higher pressure environments when you know that you have agency backing, but are you the type of person that's going to sit and listen? And listening is one of the biggest skills that we will just look for. That is a non-negotiable.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Gilbert-Kryling.
And I'm Mallory Lazick.
This is No Surprises, a look inside the ambitious, joyful, and occasionally terrifying journey of running a web design agency.
Oh man, which one of those feelings pops out the most for you right now?
Joyful, obviously.
Always.
Definitely.
Right?
Journey, maybe.
Journey.
Maybe journey.
Joy is a journey.
Joy is journey. It's not a destination. Joy is a journey.
Joy is a journey.
To the therapists.
I know. Hey, cheers to the hardest working people.
Wow. Yeah.
I actually don't have one right now because mine keep disappearing.
Oh,
which is really good for my abandonment issues.
it's great. Yeah.
I'll just keep passing along any solid gold nuggets from mine.
Yeah, exactly. What are we talking about today, Raina?
We're talking about trustworthiness. I'm super excited. I got a bunch of questions for you guys that I'll ask. The first I want to sort of start off about why did trustworthiness make the top of the list in terms of values for Week of the Website? And what does it mean to the agency?
Man, off with the bangers today. So we've always known for a really long time that because our process moves so quickly, there has to be a lot of initial buy-in from the clients. And so it's really important that we just walk the walk. And we've always approached our work as a sort of, let's let our work speak for ourselves rather than talking the talk. We will just walk the walk. And it lends itself well to building and establishing that trust, but we know that our process doesn't work unless we feel like we have that buy-in from the client.
100%. I mean, it's such a delicate balance, I think, because we work in such a collaborative way. It feels like visually, to me, it feels like something maybe being counterbalanced, right? And there has to be equal weight on each side to keep things in alignment. We have to be able to be very clear about what our expectations and needs are. And we have to be very trustworthy when it comes to what we bring to the table for our clients, because we're asking them to not only trust us, but to be very participatory in the process. And so if any one part of that isn't being well taken care of, it doesn't balance. It doesn't work.
We go straight for full-on relationship. We go right, you got to buy in. I mean, it moves so fast that, we understand that we're asking a lot of people to come into this process and be like, I have buy-in, I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm going to give you timely feedback. So we have to show our end of that as well in order to sort of facilitate that sort of vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we ask people to pay up front. We ask them to pay for their week in advance. We ask them to provide us with content, and we ask them to trust that we're going to listen and get it turned around. And so we have to be really, really comfortable meeting those expectations that we set out for ourselves. So I think when we we're putting these together, trustworthiness just felt like an easy inclusion because it's everything. And I think it's something that this is something that Mal and I both really value, like as people, right? I think both of us try our hardest to show up in our lives in a really trustworthy way, and for each other and for our other partners and for our families and for our team members. So it just, not having it in there wasn't even an option.
Yeah, when we were talking about trustworthiness the other day, another word that came up in conjunction a lot was reliable.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be like reliable in a web development space these days?
I mean, it's kind of shockingly rare. Like I hear from so many people, and I don't understand it, because I think I'm in the headspace of like, if you're not going to provide really excellent service at what you do, why do it?
Right. Water is wet, as we say.
Yeah, like I don't get that. So to us, that is very core. But I think it is surprisingly rare in the industry, like, because we have a process that's defined, clear, has expectations, goals, and deadlines. We are kind of like, it is inherent that our responsibility is reliability for our clients, but that is not something that I have heard is very consistent across the industry as a whole. So I guess that is like, ends up being kind of a deciding or like a differentiating factor for us, even though we think it's kind of just like how people should do business.
Right. Yeah. Like we came into it with this mindset that this was going to be one of the things that we did differently from our peers, was that we were going to approach this from like this hyper transparent point of view, where we're like, when we're starting, we don't have hundreds of projects to back us up with reviews saying like, they do in fact deliver on this really wild concept of a website in 1 week. That really helps push that along. But when we were starting, we're like, well, how do we convey trustworthy in this sort of way without having the proof or the success? And for us, that meant just being really transparent and really clear about everything we did, just to establish this sort of like, we're open books, we have nothing to hide. Like we know that we're asking a lot of you, but like, hey, you can trust us, we promise.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you talk about trustworthiness, because you talk about it sometimes in terms of like what trustworthiness meant when you first started the agency. And now it's kind of morphed, evolved, transformed into something that includes being reliable, which means like showing up and finishing the project and doing a good job. But also now you're able to recommend software solutions, be the reliable and trustworthy source to make recommendations around business decisions. So I'm wondering how, if you know of like any examples with clients, or areas where you feel like trustworthiness has just really evolved for you as part of the agency.
I think having knowledge really helps with that, right? Like the more time you spend doing something, the more options you have when folks come to you. And I think we're really keen on having people make sure they understand their needs before they're asking for advice. Because if someone comes to us and says, hey, I need a better way to do this thing, usually we'll take a step back and be like, all right, well, let's talk through what you're doing right now and where it's not working. And what I think we've developed and accumulated over the years, which is really hard to do, is experience with a lot of different tools, right? And most of that just comes from a client will come to us and they're like, I'm using this system and I want to integrate it in my new site. Like, great, let's check it out. And I think every time a client comes to us, our team is very interested in trying to help them find the best tool to solve their problem in particular. Because we really only work with people who have that undeniable desire to see people around them succeed. We trust that our team members are taking the client's needs into consideration when they make recommendations.
Right.
And I think what comes out of that is like a really fruitful and interesting relationship with our clients, because we get to learn more about their business. We try to center them and make sure they understand, like, you are the person who has to use and own this going forward. Is this going to work well for you? And they have to kind of trust that we're going to guide them with the best knowledge that we have.
Mhm. Yeah, a big part of that in recommending digital ecosystem enhancements or things like that is like really cultivating a culture of deep listening, which I think
Mhm.
the process does a really good job of doing, like the week of the website process. Can you talk a little bit about, well, Mal said something that has already stuck with me like a couple minutes ago when she said, we go whole hog relationship, which is like, I was just like, I'm
Right to defining
like,
it.
I'm like,
Here are what my needs are.
exactly. Like I am still preoccupied by that a little bit. And like, I think probably because I think there's this idea that when you run a business or are in a professional space, the relationship side of things isn't as important. It's not the thing. But because of the way the process works, like
Right.
you have
It
to
is the thing
cultivate
for
this.
us.
It is the thing. And so that's like first of all, it's an extremely vulnerable way to do
Mhm.
business. But in order to do it like successfully, you have to be a deep listener. You have to be trustworthy. You have to know yourself and be self-aware. And so I'm wondering if you can like talk a little bit about that and how you find contractors and like, what is the vibe and like, how do you find that and cultivate that?
Right. Well, I think it starts right away with, oh man, it goes all the way back to like where we look for talent and
Yeah.
how we look for talent. We will seek out talent from pools that we know align with our values and our needs. Values being the things that we're talking about today, and needs being about, all right, well, this person we know can build on wireframes, but more than that, we have a sort of soft skill set that we're always looking for. And one of the biggest components is listening. And we ask specifically, like before you even get to an interview stage, it's, like, can you give us an example of how you took feedback from a client? And hey, how do you feel in these situations? We basically interview with the mindset that you're going into the toughest client relationship we can ever think of. How are you going to respond to these higher pressure environments when you know that you have agency backing, but are you the type of person that's going to sit and listen? And we will give questions out where we're looking for very pointed replies in that sense. And listening is one of the biggest skills that we will just look for. That is a non-negotiable, because at the end of the day, based on the way that we work, we are not the type of design agency that you go to when you want to build a website that's going to cost $50,000 and have a lot of custom coded elements that have been created specifically for your needs. We are the solution that comes in and we partner with our clients, which means that clients have a lot of say in what happens, which means that as a developer, as a team member, like clients, it's their site. Ultimately, their suggestions, their needs, that's what we have to deliver on. And so being able to tease that out in a situation and respond to it in a way that fulfills their objectives, their design needs, it takes a really special type of person. And so
I think we've gotten like better and better every time we hire. I think we have gotten more accurate in terms of how we describe the job. And I think one thing that we are always very open about is like, this is what the job is. This is how much this is how much you get paid. We work on a flat fee basis. So like there's math here, right? We can only charge so much, pay out so much. This person gets this person gets this, the agency gets this. The client pays this.
Right.
And we also are like very intentional about listing out our expectations and try very hard to describe what it's like to be a week of the website designer and project manager, so that it's kind of like, I think, dating in your mid-30s or like maybe after your first long-term relationship.
What do you
where
know about that?
Where you sit down and you're like, do you want kids? Like, there's no time to waste. There's just it doesn't make sense to like tiptoe around it. And I think everybody feels better by just like cutting the BS. And I only know about that because of my lovely friends who have shared their experiences with me. I've not dated in my mid-30s, but
Well, I mean, yes, like in a lot of sense, it's like, it can be viewed like speed dating, right? You're just like trying to cut to the quick of it, because in our work, there's a very real deadline. There's very real objectives set out. If you're looking for, something that's like gets all those transactional details down up front so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable in exploring everything that happens beyond that. Precisely. Like that's exactly how our work kind of, a great metaphor for our work.
there's no way I made this up, but I just think of trustworthiness as say what you do and then do what you say. Like,
Yeah,
this is it.
that's when I say, I'm like, you got to walk the walk. You can't just talk the talk. Like you got to be about it. You can't just talk about it. And this is something that I feel really, I know you do too, Kelsey, and it comes into form for us in a lot of our ways of not being able to be self-promotional in any which way, even though we know that we have the gusto to back up any sort of claim. But yeah, like it's hard to talk about that sort of stuff. It's a lot easier to just do it, keep your head down, do the work, and let your work speak for itself. And that's the kind of good relationships and like success stories you can't buy. Like they're incredible when they work out that way.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that the cultivation, like the way that you've created trustworthiness in the process, does it create repeat clients? Does it create, do you see like how much of your business would you say is like people who come back or people who
26%.
Wow. Wait, really? You know that number?
Well, yes, but only because just before this call, like maybe 45 minutes ago, we got like a year in review from our contracting tool that we use. And because we track like where our leads come from, it could show us the percentage of our business that was recurring clients, like returning clients. I wouldn't have known that number on any other day but today.
Well, that's amazing that you know that.
Kelsey, just say
Mallory
I know.
would.
I'm like, I was gonna say 25.
I don't have a memory for numbers. I have more of a memory for concepts. So it's just the only reason that's funny is because we were just talking about it.
Is that number higher or lower than what you anticipated? Or just about? I mean,
well, this is when you get into like, data is data and you have to have all the context. So it's really hard to paint. It would be really difficult for me to paint a realistic picture of why it's lower and why that's not such a bad thing. It used to be much higher, and that's just because we're just doing much bigger volume these days than what we used to do. But most of our projects have always, just from this point forward, all come from referrals, more or less, without like, we have a couple of lead gen systems, but for a really long time, most of our projects came through referrals. And that was how we were able to really get to the next level of our business, is because for every project we did, we would at least be able to get one referral from those folks on average, which was huge.
I think that number feels realistic to me because a referral from someone who's like a friend of, I always think the friend of the pod, but like friend of Week of the Website is not the same thing as a repeat customer. Yeah. I think in our vision for growth of the company, we would like that number to be much higher because we're really trying to cultivate these We Get the Website Pro relationships where we have that trust between ourselves and another agency where they know we're going to execute for them over and over again consistently. I think that's like our biggest opportunity to grow is through those relationships. So I think next year we would love to see that number be way higher, but I think if that number was followed or preceded by people who were like referred by a past client, we would be the most happy, because those are two buckets of people who are like they know what we do, they understand what we do.
Right.
It would be super cool. And this is one of those things that like, we're always trying to figure out how we can sneak some, like, not sneak is not the right word, but like tie things to data. I would love to be able to say, okay, this percentage of Week of the Website clients referred us to someone else. Because of the nature of what we do, like websites are not skincare. You do not have to refresh it every season, right? Like websites are something that are an investment. It is something that is, your needs are going to change the deeper you get into a project. So like, it never surprises me when clients have to eventually redesign their websites using like maybe a different tool or a different platform because they're doing things. To me, I think that that's a mark of our success because we've helped them get to that next level. And sometimes people are going to like age out of the Week of the Website as an experience. As long as they're referring other people into us, we're like, great.
Right.
Because I think that means we've done our job of helping them succeed to the next stage.
Mm-hmm. We've talked a little bit about the way you cultivate trustworthiness among the contractors that work for Week of the Website as well as the clients. Let's talk a little bit about trustworthiness with the community. Squarespace is an interesting community. There's a lot of different people who are building on Squarespace. One of the sort of taglines that I've heard about Week of the Website in the past is, we are the most trusted and loved Squarespace agency for creatives. So you serve that community of creatives and people who don't necessarily want to DIY their website or have moved beyond the DIY way.
Yeah.
But there's other ways that you show up for your community. I'd love to talk about that, whether it's training on Squarespace or anything else.
Yeah, I mean, Squarespace is a really interesting platform. Our developers were having a conversation about this on the Slack yesterday, on the Slack channel for developers.
The Slack.
Sounded extremely hello, fellow kids in that moment. But
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve Buscemi.
like, Squarespace is a very interesting community because it was one of the first no code tools. And I'm kind of paraphrasing one of our developers, Justin, here. He was talking about how like other platforms don't consider Squarespace no code. They really consider it like a DIY platform for people who are more design intentioned. But I have found that people in the Squarespace community are pretty like, they like Squarespace, they use Squarespace, but tend to be like pretty open to other platforms. Anyway, I could digress on this whole like community discussion, but I think your question of how do we support those communities, one of the things I think about our hiring as a way that we kind of like participate in the Squarespace ecosystem. There are, over the last 10 years, have developed a lot of programs that are teaching people how to be Squarespace designers. When we did our first round of hiring, it was people who were all self-taught. This last round, it was really cool to interview because there are people who are coming out of these like kind of like the Squarespace equivalent of code schools. And
it's like the first time we've seen this too, because like
it really is like it's really
pretty much all of our
next
team is like
evolution.
self-taught.
Yeah. And this time around, we have a couple of people who have gone through like I Love Creatives, which we're a huge fan of, folks who've gone through this training program called Standout Squarespace by Raish, also a huge fan. And it's so interesting to see like the different schools of thought, aesthetics, knowledge that come out of those programs. It's really exciting to be able to then be like, hey, want to make money doing this, right? That kind of fulfills the promise of what they're doing. previously we had done a lot of in-person events of like,
Yeah.
business website.
Build your
Now
own
that-
business website.
Yeah.
BYOBW was
Yeah.
a hot event.
Yeah, we did them at Soho House, we did them at the Ace Hotel, we did them at an incubator in town.
I
And
think like one of the first ones we did, it was super crowded. And
Huge.
you and I were both like,
yeah, we were really surprised.
ooh, interesting.
We were really surprised.
And then I think someone came up to us at the end and was like, why are you just doing we had this whole presentation. We created a website from nothing at the event while people watched on, like talking through it. And like I would create fake copy and stuff. And one was for a business called Shapuppo, which created hats for dogs.
Fanciful hats for dogs.
And so we would just be like, and there are a bunch of images that we pulled of dogs in fancy hats from the internet, and we're creating this e-commerce store. And someone came up to us after one of them, and this is not the first time that we had heard it, but it's like, why would you like tell people to do the things that you can get paid to, right? I'm sure a lot of people have heard this before if you've ever donated any of your time for your expertise. And we were just like, well, you can always choose to do this yourself. Like you're not our customer if you're doing that. Like if you get to a point where you're like, oh, I should hire them, then great, you can come talk to us, but it's supposed to be this way.
And I think that kind of investment in the people around you, it helps them understand like where our head is when we work with our clients, right? Because if you go to build your own website and you take a free class from someone who does that by trade, but is willing to share that knowledge with you, if you get to the point where it's not working for you, why wouldn't you then turn to the people that you know have already invested their time in making you be successful? And I don't think that that's ever been like, that's not a manipulation. That's something that we hold like very deep as a part of our like why and who we are. When we offboard our clients, we give them access to a whole training portal forever. That's just like our team's, tutorial videos that we've worked with a partner to create. We have Q&A, like things that really help people be successful. And I think we've seen that as a part of our mission as a company, even if that's not how we have made money, because everything on the internet is knowable now.
Right.
We do not stand to benefit by hiding knowable information from people. And in fact, if most of us are self-taught using the internet, wouldn't we be kind of jerks if we didn't encourage that? So I think that like being comfortable investing in our community like that and giving that information away, or like directing people to the information that we use to be successful, it doesn't cost us anything. And I think it just helps us like,
yeah. And we don't have any gripes or hangups about sharing information that was long fought and hard, right? Trying to equalize the playing field is not such a bad thing. I always like to say, I'm like, there's plenty of work out there for everyone.
totally.
We're all just selling something a little bit differently. If we're selling the same thing, we're tradespeople, right? You hire us because we are experts in making something and we can make it happen. But the more the merrier, the better the community, the stronger the work ends up being.
And when you trust yourself and you trust your team to be excellent, then you don't see every opportunity to build a site that doesn't go to you as a loss. You see that as like, I trust that our work is good. I trust that there is value. I trust that people see it. And I trust that the right clients will work with us. I also trust people that we talk to who say no, to know for themselves what is going to fit for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's that that's the whole ecosystem I think flows in that trustworthiness like plays a huge part in.
Mm-hmm.
It is like the biggest intangible thing that if you can breed trust, it really hard fought one, really easy to lose, right? So you definitely have to be walking the walk in order to make this one work. But I mean, look at, I mean, we give away a ton of business when we know that it's just not right for us. And that might not be anyone's fault. It's just not the right work for us. So we will just go give it to one of our team members that does side work. That's great. You know, like I said, plenty of work for all of us. We don't have to come to work from this scarcity mindset where we're thinking that there's a finite amount of things out there. You know, this has been working, it'll work as long as it doesn't, but we're definitely for a subset of individuals, of client types. We're not for everyone. And I think that's kind of that sort of you know, I'm going to say ballsy, but then I always usually say like over easy's way of just being like, well, we don't need it. Like, you know, we can just pass along. There's a goodwill component to it. Feels really good. Everyone wins because we know when we take a project that's not the right project for us, the client suffers and we suffer. And then we just can't do our jobs. And then we're laying awake at night with a client problem that no one really needs to be solving, that we saw coming. It's our job to see these things coming.
Well, and I think it used to be different when it was like you and me, Mal, you know, we were choosing our own fate. So if we knew things were going to be a little rocky, but we wanted to do it anyway,
we'll be like, oh, we'll do it.
It would be like, okay, this is going to be rough, but it'll be worth it for some reason. Are you in? And she'd be like, yeah, are you in? I'd be like, yeah, this is going to hurt, but it'll be fine. We can't do that anymore. Like that would be so disrespectful to our team to say yes to things that we know aren't going to be a good fit for the money, because we're not the ones executing it anymore. And I think that sometimes business owners feel like that is an excuse. Like it's an excuse to say yes to more things. But I think for us, because they're like, well, I'm not going to have to deal with it. And that's what they get paid for. Like, I think that's a really unsustainable approach to working with a team. And our job and our goal is not to like burn the people out who work with us, who are amazing, that we've like taken time to cultivate.
Yeah. Because guess what takes a really long time? Training.
Training. Yeah. So I think that trustworthiness, like, we have to be willing to really work in support of our team. And then I think at the end, we have to be really comfortable being held accountable if they come to us and say, hey, listen, I don't think this was scoped well, or like, I don't think that this met the mark in terms of like what should have been a week of the website project. Like, we have to be willing to sit there, listen to that, and take that into consideration, because they're trusting us with their time and their like stress levels.
Sure. One data point that I think is interesting for listeners to note is that obviously like saying no is, you know, part of the, and just being really discerning about what projects the week of the website takes. It's part and parcel to why week of the website is so successful. This is to the tune of almost 10,000 canceled projects on 99 Designs. I think that is like a very interesting metric that I think cannot be overstated. Like that's I mean, granted, the agency's been around for a long time, but that's a lot of no thank you. That's a lot of times to say thanks, but no thanks. And I'm sure that in the beginning of those 10,000 requests, like it was harder than it is now.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I just pulled up the numbers because I think this is like very interesting. We've canceled 9,778 projects and we've completed 245. So like a huge amount of those, you know, of those, the clients are the ones saying, you're not going to be a fit. Your budget's, you know, my budget's too small or whatever. But that's like, let's do a little math. That's a 2% match rate on, you know, these conversations. And so I think sometimes Mal and I think and talk about like, what if we were a different agency, right? You know, what if we were always trying to like take on bigger projects, more expensive projects, longer projects, projects with like, you know, timelines that were months or years. And I think so many agencies grow in that way, and that's fine for them. I think we have a different idea of how we think this could maybe play out. And we've seen as we grow, new challenges that come to the fold, like it's just math. The more people you have working with you, the more money you have to make, the more projects you have to do, you know, it compounds. But I think we feel like there's something here that could be really interesting serving this very specific part of the market, but we're serving a very specific part of the market. And I think it's always really tempting to be like, but what if we did this? And what if we did this? And what if we did this? Instead of being like, what if we kept doing this really well? Like, I really think there's a lot of people out there who need their first professional website designed for them, who do not have, for whatever reason, the desire to spend many, many months and tens of thousands of dollars and have a lot of meetings. I really believe that. And I trust that that is out there. And I trust our ability to communicate that our value to people who need that.
Mm-hmm. I want to close the loop on one thing. For the record, I could talk about this for hours. This is like where I get caught up in like networking events on the corner with someone giving them like business advice. One of the questions I have been asked a lot is in relation to like, okay, what if I'm starting off? And kind of like to Kelsey's point, how she said, you know, we would take projects before that we maybe shouldn't have. And like, where do you draw the line? When do you draw the line? And someone who's really conservative will say, you know, we'll go out there and get the volume up so that you can start finding clients that you like, la, 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 la. But for us, I think we stopped short of saying yes before it was financially. We still do it on occasion when it's not to our financial advantage. I would only advocate that. I would skip a payroll to work with clients that were great and make a little less money than to make more money and have projects that don't turn out well. Like, feels really risky for folks to turn off that lever for obvious reasons. Money is how we live, but it will always hold you back in the long run. And we've seen that played out so many times where I think it got to the third time we did it. We were like, okay, we're just not doing this anymore. We know it's not a good fit. We are walking away. And it served us really well. And it actually did allow us to grow. And so in retrospect, I would go back and tell my former self to take even less of those projects, even when I was really antsy, because they never work out the way you want. And I've had this conversation enough times with enough creatives in enough industries to know that this is a pretty generally applicable rule. Like, if it means something to you, if your values mean something that are not in alignment with that, like, you know, to each their own. If you want to go out and get that bread all day long, go get it. That's not my game that I'm playing.
Well,
you know, but for me, it's like, for us, it's like our mental health, our emotional expenditure is really important, especially when you're talking about agency work, repetitive agency work, burnout, like all of these things. It's like, well, we have to be in alignment with our clients. If it's not a good fit, we will just let them know.
Well, we had a like really tangible experience of this morning, and this is like, Mal was like busting my chops pretty hard because I had this client who's like a perfect fit for us. They have everything they need to be successful. And they were just trying really hard to negotiate with me. And as a general rule, we have set prices. We are not custom quoting projects. That means I'm not charging you more because I can sense that you will pay more. We have said, this is the value of our project. This is what that includes. We have a couple of areas that we can wiggle. If someone's like, I really need this to come down by X dollars, we can say, fine, then we can omit this part of the project to bring it down to meet your budget. There's really not that much leverage for us. And I'm like in it this week. We have a lot going on at home and I am tired. And this morning we were on our business development call and I was just like, you guys, I just don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to have this conversation. I'm exhausted. And the conversation was like, this person really wanted us to come down by $200. And, you know, one perspective was, it's $200. Like, what do we care? And then Mal goes, well, you know, this will have to affect team pay on this project because we are now based on a percentage. You know, the way that we do payouts is based on a percentage instead of a flat fee anymore. And I got silent for a really long time because I was just like, am I willing to give up $200 out of my own pocket to make this problem go away? Absolutely. Am I willing to give away $200 out of our team's pockets to make this problem go away? Not a chance. And so I just was like, nope, this is how much it's going to cost. If you want that, you can omit this portion of it. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to work together. And
I mean, as a business owner, it's like being a parent. You'll give your baby whatever it needs. You'll do whatever you need to do. But when you start being like, oh, is that really good for everyone now? Like,
I can't look our team members in the eye and be like, sorry, I couldn't negotiate this up enough. So like they trust me to be able to like make the sales for what we have promised them the value of these projects are. And I think in the moment I was just like, God dang it, Mallory.
Anytime we come in lower, it's like, I'll always say like, great, well, can we omit maybe SEO? Like the scope's got to change if we're coming down in price. And I use this example all the time. And don't get me wrong, negotiation totally works. You can absolutely do that if you want to. If you want to do that, that is not a time where Kelsey and I like to spend our emotional or literally just any of our time. It's just not where we want to be. And yeah, I mean, at this point, it's just, it affects everyone. And like, I'm just like, to me, it's like, it can just be a little black and white. It can be like, well.
You also have to, in those moments, trust your value, right? Like, I got very quiet. And then while we're on video call, they can see me both like, I mean, I was being such a baby about it too. I was just like,
I'm so used to being like, Mal said something that's I am a ball buster no matter what. Like I am a really hard person to work with if you do not like someone who plays devil's advocate, because that is all I do. Is I'm like, what about this perspective? What about this perspective? Have you thought about it this way yet? And it can be really infuriating because it feels like you get further and further away from a solution. But ultimately, like, it's the questions that you ask that help you find a solution that's right for you. For us, like, we may be willing to give our own money, but we're not willing to budge on any of our contractors, because we want our contractors to want to work with us. And while they are very well aware that we pay out on a percentage and they know what that percentage is, for us, it just holds us accountable to keeping our own values in check. Like, we know that we're worth the money. It's not about it's just like, we've been in business for so long to know that this is the way it kind of has to be. We don't really have, like Kelsey says, we don't really have that much leverage. Like, it's pretty out there what we take, like, our entire team. I mean, if they know what they get paid, they know what we get paid, and they know what that breaks out to beyond that. And there's really not that much wiggle room. So, you know, we've got mouths to feed too, and we can't starve. So,
well, it was the right call though, right? Because you reframed it and asked me in not so many words, like, do you value our process at the price you've listed it? Okay. Are you going to be a little baby about it? Or are you going to trust that you've done the work to lay the foundation and make the project be successful at the price that you've quoted it at. And as Paul Ruddy as I was about it, they ended up being like, great, thanks for putting together such an awesome package, send over the contract. Like it was a whole thing for us where it created this massive,
which is why, and this
moment.
is an example of why we don't do it, is because we're like, we don't like this. We don't come from a background. Like I did the sales thing. I did the negotiation thing. I can do it. I don't want to. I will be a baby about that. I went through the rigmarole to set this up, to be as transparent as possible about our pricing, what you get, so that I didn't have to get into these nebulous conversations that often. Like if you want to negotiate here and there, to me, it's like, for us, it's not a fit. We move so fast that if you're going to negotiate everything, we're never going to be able to deliver.
Yeah.
So it's like, I get where people are coming from. The game, listen, I know plenty of excellent negotiators, but it's just not, it's not the game I like to play.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. We're coming to the end of our time, and I want to read the trustworthiness manifesto, if you will, for week of the website. We're not a cult yet, but we could be. We are.
It's a
We will not.
a community.
We will.
It's a community. Thank you. It's a community.
It's not a pyramid scheme. It's one person.
It's not MLM. It's just a cash table.
Right. It's not Nexium.
Or what's it called? Cash giving table?
Yes,
Giving table?
Giving table. Oh my God.
It's not an MLM.
We are reliable, consistent, and supportive. We do what we say. We are the real deal.
Real
I
deal,
feel like
baby.
real deal, baby. This conversation has definitely felt, it's definitely the real deal. Is there anything else that either of you would like to say in closing?
Oh man. I think trust, like I think I just like want to reiterate that like trust is really hard to gain and really easy to lose. And so if you're gonna walk this walk, like you got to keep your side of the street as clean as possible. So we don't take it lightly what we do. We're not selling someone on our trustworthiness. We are literally like, it's a fact we can state. We have the notes to back it up. But if you find this really important, then you have to really walk the walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also think it is hard. It is a harder but more relaxing posture to be in, because like if there's a conflict, then there's a conflict, but it's not over he said, she said. It's over like things that are more solvable than that. And I think that's what we always want to inspire in both our team, our clients, and each other, is like being comfortable in accountability, because as long as everybody's willing to step up to the plate and just like own what's actually happening, then we can solve whatever from there. And I think if you try your hardest to keep that at your core, then you never have to question whether or not you're meeting the expectations set upon you, because they're like the ones you laid out. And I hope we can keep doing that. I don't think like no one's ever perfect at anything, but I think as long as we keep like really having that in focus and in our line of sight, I think we can continue to like run the business in the way that feels the most truthful for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great.
What do you think, Daisy?
Daisy sleeping on the job.
Snoozing.
Dexter is too. Dexter
taking a snoozle.
Has been
Dexter's
snoozing.
actually back being like a tiny transcriptionist.
No. He's always on my lap during these moments, which I find to be like quite relaxing.
So
we found a blanket today. So
great.
So next episode, what are we going to get into?
Roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we assigning new ones? Because I would like to be
primary.
No, I don't want to be the primary. I want to be Chief Stu, and you be the primary. You, Raina, you're captain.
We watch a lot of Below Deck, and we were watching it last night, and I heard, they refer to whoever like chartered the yacht as the primary, and I go,
Yeah.
Yachts are terrible for the environment, but if I were going to charter one, I would do it solely so that I knew people were calling me the primary on walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I feel like
this is where my ego needs to chill out a little bit.
I feel like Mallory's the primary, Katie is the bosun, and I'm Chief Stu, and Raina, you get to be Captain Lee.
Oh my God,
Great.
Captain Lee, an honor
Great.
to be Captain Lee. Scorpio boy.
And a Scorpio pig.
Scorpio, I love a Scorpio.
Love a good Scorpio vibe. Yes.
Anyway,
Kelsey, when we found out he was a Scorpio, she looked at me. She goes, "I know that's your Achilles heel." I'm like, "Don't even get me started." Captain Lee. He's got some one-liners.
he sure does. None that we can say because we would get a very high, a bad kid rating on
HR.
YouTube. Speaking of, you can listen and watch more surprises anywhere where you get your podcasts. You can see all of this goodness on YouTube. Our Week of the Website is weekofthewebsite.com. And we will also be found on Instagram at Week of the Website. And you know what? Mallory has done an amazing job with a very cool new layout for our Instagram. So check it out.
So cool.
And
I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. But next week, we will talk about roles and responsibilities. And thank you to Raina, as always, for hosting us and guiding us.
Raina and Daisy.
Thanks so much for having us. We love it. We're here for it.
See you later.